Whether you're a new seller or you've been selling a while, these are 5 things that will absolutely destroy your eBay store. Hey, my name is Margaret. I've been selling on eBay for over 10 years, and this is one of the ways that I support my family. And today I'm going to share with you 5 ways that can absolutely hurt, destroy, put your eBay store in the toilet. And I would like for you to not have to go through these things. I recently found myself in a very peculiar situation, and that's where my eBay store fell below standard, and I had to really evaluate what I had done to get myself into this position. There are lots of different ways this can happen, and some of these ways I'm going to share with you so that you don't make some of the same mistakes that I made and that maybe some other new sellers also make. One of the things that I know that I did when I was an early seller, and I know maybe a lot of you guys might do, is not realize what eBay's policies are for what can and cannot be sold on eBay. There's a very specific list of things that have restrictions or are completely banned from being sold on eBay. And I know when I first started, there were things that I didn't realize because I just wasn't steeped in that information. So I remember a time that I sold a Chanel, or I tried to sell a Chanel pin, but I knew it was not an authentic Chanel pin. I didn't realize, now I know, but at the time, this was like 10, 12 years ago, I didn't realize that that was a no-no because I didn't do my research. But I thought, oh, it'll be okay because I'm going to put faux Chanel pin in the description, in the title. So I'm not saying it's real. I know it's fake. So I'm not trying to deceive anybody. So I thought I was okay by covering myself in that way, but absolutely not. I definitely got that listing taken down and a notification from eBay saying, hey, this is a no-no. If you do this again, you could get your account suspended, or you could be removed from the platform if it's something that continues. So knowing what you can and cannot sell, there's a lot of rules about that. Another item is bone and ivory. There are situations where you can sell these items, but you have to have a lot of documentation to prove, say if it's ivory, you have to have documentation showing the age of it. And if it's bone, they want to know what kind of animal it came from. So frequently, this is something you can't even sell on eBay. And I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can go and peruse all the things that you want to see if you can sell or not sell on eBay's platform. And this kind of goes hand in hand with this. There are certain words that you can't use because they're trademarked words. So let's say you've got a purse with Velcro. Well, we call it Velcro, but it may not be branded Velcro. And so you've got to know, like, oh, I can't use the word Velcro because it's called you have to call it hook and eye closure, because unless you can prove that it's actual Velcro in the item, then you can't say that on eBay. So there's a whole list of words that you can't say. And then there's also some brands that you can't sell on eBay. So knowing what's banned, what words are banned, what items you can't sell, so knowing those restrictions are very important. Another thing I know I did early on was I downplayed the flaws in items because I really wanted to make sales. I really wanted to start getting my eBay store rolling, and this was on Etsy too. I downplayed some of the flaws in items and just rolled the dice and took a chance, right? Because I wasn't educated enough about it, that I really just was trying to get those sales. And I had a lot of dissatisfied customers. I would have a lot more returns, and I would have, messages from buyers that were not always pleasant, stating, you didn't say that this, right? Because I wanted that sale. And I'm willing to admit that I made those mistakes because I know that that's something, especially if you're in a position like I was, where I'm like, I need to make this work because I was in a bad marriage, a bad situation. I needed to be able to start making money to get out of my bad situation. And no secret, I talk about that a lot on my channel, but if you're in that situation, if you are making the choice to downplay flaws or give bad customer service, ignore returns, things like that, it's going to set you back even further and be really frustrating to, it's like one step forward, 2 steps back when you do that. So making sure that you are putting all the flaws, giving great customer service, and really under promise and over deliver. make sure that they know, and there's photographs, and you've told them everything that's possibly wrong with the item. So when they get it, it's like, whoa, this is way better than I anticipated. And then they leave you a fantastic review. The next thing that can really tank your store, or I don't want to say tank your store, but definitely set you back, is that race to the bottom. A lot of times sellers, again, especially new sellers, they're really desperate to make those sales. I have kind of a two-prong approach on this one. And so the race to the bottom, what that means is listing your item as low, like to be the lowest one, so that people will buy it. There's a couple of things there that psychologically might be askew. There's something called perceived value, where a person, they're like, I've got $20 to spend on my friend for her birthday, and I want to get her this gold bowl. And I see somebody's got it listed for $2. Ooh, but I don't want to be cheap and spend $2 on my friend. I know this is not you and me, but there are people that are like, no, this is the mindset. Like, I have to spend a certain amount for my friend for her birthday. So they'll go and find one that's $20 or $15 that, like, okay. Or they'll think, why is it so cheap? What's wrong with it? You know, what am I missing here? Like, maybe it's a scam, or maybe there's something wrong with it, or and so they don't believe that it would be that cheap, and so they'd buy one that was a little higher priced. So if you're starting out and you're wanting to make those sales, I would say don't choose the bottom, right? I get the and this is advice I've given too. Like, you're trying to get some sales going because you want feedback, so you look like a more established seller, and it really helps your store. It helps eBay, raise your seller limit on how many items you can list. And so maybe listing in the middle, or even a little bit lower in the middle, not the base bottom, right? Until you get those sales rolling. I don't list at the bottom anymore. I tend to list at the top because I'm willing to wait. And I put best offer on mine so that I have some wiggle room. Like, if I have to put a sale on, or if I, send an offer to somebody, I've got wiggle room on the price. But I do understand, like, if you're just getting started and you're trying to build your eBay store and you're trying to get that feedback, raise your limits, then it's really tempting to go bottom of the barrel. But I would say not quite bottom, midline. But then you've got to, like, deliver with your photos, and you've got to deliver with your description and all of that to really make sure that the buyer is comfortable wanting to buy your item. The next thing that can really hurt you when you're starting out, because I know for me, this was the number one thing that was hardest for me, is shipping. So make sure that you're really diligent when you're taking your photos to weigh your items, how much it weighs, and measure not just the item, but keep in mind, like, do I have a box for this? Do I know how I'm going to ship this when it sells? Do I have all the packing material? How much is that going to weigh? And I know eventually I had to start doing that. I thought, oh, I got this when I first started, and I just winged it. And a lot of times I was shipping items and I was having to pay extra for the shipping because I didn't charge enough for the shipping. So at a certain point, I was like, I am not doing this anymore. I am going to put everything in a box with the packaging it's going to go with, and I'm going to weigh it and measure it and have all of that down pat. And so it took me doing that. And then sometimes I would add a little bit extra on the weight so that I would have a little cushion just to make sure. Now still, I still have where I mess up, and I think it weighs less than it does, because I think still, I'm like, I got this. And sometimes I don't got this. So taking the time to measure and weigh and know how you're going to ship it is really super important. And then another area is customer service. New sellers, I think get targeted, I'm sure get targeted a little bit more from either scammers or people that are trying to take advantage and push the limits with, getting a return or getting a partial refund. And they might send you threatening messages or rude messages or harsh, so I still get those, but not as often. But you just have to take it with a grain of salt and, have professional communication. It's super tempting because you're, like, frustrated and you want to respond back, and, like, in turn, especially if they're being ugly to you, just try to get to the root of what their complaint is and respond just to that. Ignore everything else, because if eBay has to intervene, they're going to come back and they're going to look at your correspondence with that buyer and see what exactly is going on. And if they're being really ugly and they're trying to push, a lot of times they won't come outright and say like, I want a partial refund. I want you to give me my money back and I want you to let me keep the item, right? They won't come right out and say that, but they'll like keep pushing until you're just like, here, just take your money back and get out of my face, right? If that's not something you want to do, which I don't encourage, from time to time it happens where I'm like, this is just not worth my time. This is like a $7 item, whatever, right? But I think there are buyers that know if they act that way, then they can get what they want. They get the item for free and they can, I've stopped doing that. Basically, I'm like, if you don't like the item, here are your options. I will say you can choose to open a return. And when I get the item back in the way it was sent out, I will refund you your money. Or you can choose to keep the item and, say you were like, I can send you a $2 back, or I can send you like 25% off or something like that, where you feel like it's a win-win. But just put it like, I like to give them a choice because then they feel like they're still in control. Like you can choose this or you can choose this. And those are the things I'm comfortable with doing. And sometimes they'll take it and sometimes they won't. Sometimes like they'll ask, like I had the last one that happened like that. He was like, when are you going to refund me? I was like, well, you have to open a return. I can't refund your money. You haven't asked, because they have to go in and initiate the return with eBay. And so you need to initiate the return and then you'll get a label. Because he was like, where's my label? Because he was like, this was funny. He was like, this thing, I paid this much for it and I paid this much for shipping. Well, it was free shipping. So he was like, it's going to cost me $8 to send it back. Well, it wouldn't have cost $8. So I want you to send me back $28 because it was $20 for the item and $8 for me to ship it back to you. And then I waited because he never opened the return. And then a couple of days later, he was like, where's my money? I'm like, well, you never opened a return. I'm not sitting. And I went and looked, like, he's a seller on eBay too. So he knows the deal, right? And there's no way it was like a comic book. No, it's not costing $8 to send it back. So he knew once he opened that return, eBay would send him the return label, which was like $4, right? But he was like, where's the money so I can return this? Like, no. Yeah, so he ended up having to open a return, and then eventually he was like down to the line because they have so many days to ship it back to you. And then he sent it back in the last like little bit of time. But at that point, I'm like, send it back or don't, and then I check it, when it comes in, did it come in the way that he said he received it? Luckily, he had sent me all these photographs of like how it got to him. So anyway, whatever. So I had proof. Like if he sent it back, I was kind of thinking like, what if he's gonna trash it, send it back and like rip to shreds? But no, he sent it back. So fine, it refunded him his money. Whatever. Just don't let it get to you is what I'm saying, and don't rise to the bait of somebody who's trying to get to you to get money or to get the item for free. If you can think of other things that might tank your sales, especially if you're watching and you're an experienced seller, leave a comment down below. I know that there's lots of other things, but I try to focus on the 5 that either I had experience with or that I see a lot of new sellers making that mistake. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I really do wish you really tremendous success and lots of money for whatever it is that you're trying to do with your eBay business. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.